This conference will now be recorded.
All right. It's at 6 p.m., so we will go ahead and call the meeting to order. And if we could all stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Mr. Ackerman?
Here.
Mr. Graham? Mr. LaFever? Mr. McKinnon?
Here.
Mrs. O'Rourke? Here. Mr. Pearson?
Here. Just to let you know, the governor has issued another disaster declaration, which covers the village of Winnebago. It's a statewide declaration. So it's the COVID-19 executive order. I've determined that an in-person meeting may not be practical because of the illnesses that it spreads. So trustees are allowed to meet virtually if they so choose. However, tonight we have all the attending trustees so far are in person, so we do not need to have all votes by roll call. Although I may forget to just ask for roll call anyway, which is not a problem. You can always have a roll call.
Better that way than the other.
Correct. And we have at least one member of the public body present along with the village attorney, which establishes what we need to do for having our presence here. We gave 48 hours notice to the public, so the public is able to join virtually. We did have the agenda and access to GoToMeeting on the agenda, so they did have that information. We're also having a verbatim recording of the meeting that will have a record of everything that we discuss, and we will make it available to the public when that is ready. We do have a quorum, so we may conduct the meeting. Any conflict of interest with the items we have on the agenda tonight? All right, I don't hear any. If you find out that you do have a conflict with any of the items we're discussing, please let me know. I guess I will say this, I don't know if it's a conflict, but I do want to get it out there. I have represented Ryan Winter and Joe Cap in a purchase of real estate here in Winnebago. They're here for a different parcel of the village owns. I do not represent them in that, but I just want to disclose that I have represented them in the past. It should not be a conflict of interest, but again, I just want to make sure it's out there. We do have changes to the agenda. Any changes to the agenda tonight?
I don't have a change necessarily, but just the fact, I just want to know how it works with zoning. I've seen this a couple times where something comes out of zoning and it gets put on the community development, and I think I'm the future head of that committee and just being a member on that committee. So if something comes out of zoning, are we as a board wanting it to be seen in that committee or discussed in that committee? Or is the zoning committee enough to bring that out of? That's my first question.
Right, so that's something that the board can discuss and how it wants to do that. I think the county of Winnebago typically will have something go from zoning then to the particular committee that addresses that, and then from there it goes to the regular zoning board or the regular county board. We may want to have.
So it does hit a committee in the middle.
Right, and so the reason for the committee is so that you have some of the trustees able to see the recommendation from the zoning or to see whatever zoning did and then maybe review it and maybe give a recommendation from the committee itself to the board. We typically haven't done that in the past. We typically would go straight from zoning to the board and the board would then just get the recommendation. But sometimes it's nice to have the committee review it ahead of time just so there can be something from the committee as a resolution or anything else they can recommend up to the full board.
Well, what I've seen, and well, just I don't know how comfortable I am when it gets put on there and we have 3 days to look it over, rather than having a discussion. And maybe it warrants extra discussion. I don't want to slow things down either if we don't think we need that. But as a member of the committee, should that be on? That's part of community development, or should it be its own entity on the agenda?
So you're saying you never talk about it in committee?
These three things came up on here We didn't put them on.
They came up, Frank had requested the committee to take a look at them. The problem is the committee had met about 1 week earlier, so we
Right.
haven't had a committee meeting to consider it. And I guess the thing about that is optimally that may be where it's going, but there are things that come up that you haven't had a chance for the committee to do it, and you can't take it up here at the board. We obviously don't want to do that all the time because it bogs it down, but if it's timely.
Yeah, and I'm more, things that come up, I get that. Zoning though, I mean, that would be all the time. You know, if that's how that's always going, I don't know.
And
Every zoning is gonna not be discussed in committee, I don't know.
right, and that's something I think the board should probably talk about as a whole, is how do you want things brought forward? Do you want it to go to the committee first, or do you want it to go straight from zoning to the board? And just, I mean, when you look at the heading, it is Community Development Committee / Planning and Zoning Board / 4th of July / events. So what we've done is we're trying to
I get
have,
it, yeah.
we're trying to have all 4 committees have its own thing, but I see we have admin team as a separate item on here, liquor commission is separate. So we could actually have zoning have a separate thing, and anything that comes directly from zoning would be put under zoning at the board meeting, and then I would just take it up
Right,
rather than putting it under community development. But that's why it's under community development, because we do have a slot for zoning. So,
I just don't want it to, if I'm heading it up,
right.
let's make this about me, because if I'm heading it up and I, like this right here, I'm gonna hand this off to you. Now I look like I didn't know what I was talking about. I kind of feel like
Mhm.
maybe that, we all know that.
No,
No.
Julie knows I know what I'm talking about. No, that's how I'm kind of feeling about it. So whatever, we can discuss it. I'm not worried about it for these or anything. But the one item, Meridian Nursery one, I did have something I wanted to check on, and I made a phone call yesterday morning, and I made a phone call this morning to make sure of what and I'm perfectly comfortable with it now, but I had two phone calls on Easter and on Monday to do it. That's all I'm saying. That one time, it would have been good to have another meeting for it, but I don't know.
So, I mean, so we can, if you need to talk about an individual item, I can address those 3 things when they come up under community development, since I was involved with the zoning.
Sure.
And Bill Emmert is here as well in case anything needs to be done. So I can bring those up, and then we'll have discussion on each of those items. So at that point, if you have concerns, if you want to add anything, that's the time where we can add. And then it's really up to the board if they want to take action. I'll just give you the preliminary thing, and then you guys can take it from there. So.
And if it comes from zoning right to the board, you're still gonna have only a few days to do any work.
And that's right,
I agree.
specifically. I mean, we try and send things out as quickly as we can after the zoning board meeting, but, there's a lag. And so if we didn't have to do it right away, the ideal thing would be that we'd be done with zoning. We've only got 2 weeks until the board meeting. So what we would do is actually have it at the next community development meeting after the next board meeting. So that way, community development would have about 4 weeks to take a look at that stuff from zoning, or at least 3 weeks. And then community development can make a recommendation. Now, if you're meeting 2 weeks before the board, you're only going to give the board another 2 weeks. But that's how we have it staggered, is we typically have our committees 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time, and then the board gets everything that we can.
I mean, I compare a little, Mr. McKinnon's on Public Works, it's complicated.
Mhm.
I trust what they're doing on that committee, and we've all, so I don't, you're not looking, I'm not so far, I'm still getting my feet wet here.
Yeah.
But I will get to a point where I'm looking at it, but I'm trusting what they're doing, so I'm trusting what the zoning committee's doing as well. I'm just wondering what the board thinks.
Yeah.
How to work that.
So again, I think that's something that, we want the board to weigh in on. How we do that.
Okay.
And the other thing too, Jason, there's a lot of things that have been changing over the last couple of years.
Sure.
So refining things or whatever, just like as a general rule, there's not been too many times, anything since I've been part of this, that any of the zoning stuff went through another committee meeting. So that's kind of a recent iteration that we're trying to put together too.
And I would say community development should be the one to discuss that issue on behalf of the board, to say, do you want it? And I can be there at the meeting and, try and give what zoning does and how it might work, and then you guys can decide.
Actually have another meet,
And
an intermediate meeting about it.
right, and you guys can discuss it at the committee level, and then if you decide you do or don't want it, you can make the recommendation to the full board, and then see if the full board agrees with the recommendation. We can kind of take it from there.
And certain things that are on there are informational at this point, like for example, number 3, the zoning text map amendment for the Meridian Nursery. You can't vote on it, that's why you don't have, an ordinance, because you can't do what they call contract zoning. You can't put in an annexation agreement that said, we will zone this property X. That's why you have the public hearing at the zoning board level first, and then you have the hearing on the pre-annexation agreement. But your point's well taken.
So we're actually voting on it, right?
Right.
So when we get to there, I'll go through all of that.
I didn't need to make my Easter phone call or anything.
I did. Just,
Glad you didn't call me.
yeah. Easter Bunny would have answered. All right, so any changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, then we don't need to approve any changes. We'll go on to the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all right. All right, we'll have a roll call, please.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. LaFever, Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. Pearson.
Yes.
All right, that's approved unanimously. And we do not have anyone signed up for public comment. And we will go on to committee reports with Public Works.
So Jason, just make you feel better.
He's been scrambling.
Again, we at least did talk about the road project, but, every once in a while, I mean, in a perfect world, we would take this back through the committee as well too, but, in an essence of time, we did have the, go out for bid. The bids were open today. Because this is very time sensitive, we don't have the opportunity to get it back into committee. So about an hour ago, if you haven't seen your email, I did send a copy of the information out from Fair Graham on basically the opening of the bids and the recommendation to award the bids. President Eubank has it on the screen right now. But at this point, I would like to make a motion. And Sally, you can take my notes when you get here. So make a motion that we award the 2023 road project to Rock Road Companies in an amount not to exceed $225,000, pending the IDOT waiting period, which will be concluded on April the 19th of 2023, and authorize President Eubank to sign the necessary contract documents.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a pending motion. Any discussion on the motion?
And just to highlight those for somebody who's not familiar, because we have a combination of road fuel taxes that are being provided on this project, there's some extra hoops and things that need to be gone through. And so there is a 8-day waiting period for anybody that's maybe bid on there and suspects that, we're not comparing apples and it's apples and oranges, they can come back. So if we were to hear something, that basically somebody disputes what's out here or whatever, we might have to revisit it, but pending no disputes or anything, then as of the 19th, then we would recommend going forward. And I see Seth jumped on the line there. Seth, is there anything that you would like to clarify or add to what I just said?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. The only thing I was going to add in was just the compliance with the MFT regulations, which you just noted. So nothing really else there. It was good bids, under estimate. So that's always a good thing.
Yeah, and if you look at what President Eubanks has got up there, we had estimated 225,000. The most favorable bid is 194,000. We are still asking for the full allotment of what we estimated at 225,000 because of the favorable unit prices. There's some extra road work projects that are in need of taking care of, and it would be a good opportunity to utilize that unit prices to get a little bit more work done and stay within the original budget.
And I would just add too, it's that, that's a great approach in a year like this year, because every other project that we're seeing out for bid right now is coming in high. So the fact that you guys got good bids is definitely something to capitalize on while you can.
And again, it's, you're probably aware in some, that we do try to get out as early in the year as we can because the contractors want to make sure that they've got their allotment of work for the season. So the sooner we get out there, the better opportunity we get. If we are out there a little bit late and they've already started to fill up their schedule, they start looking for a little bit more margin on their projects.
I'd like to thank Seth and Chad and for our Public Works Committee members in getting it out there early. I know that's the desire every year to do that, and it was always done well for us to do that. So I just want to compliment everybody on doing that.
Just for curiosity, do we always take the lowest bid? I mean, it's not like sometimes people.
Unless we've had quality issues or something like that where we're not comfortable with, or, you can take the intangibles into things, but fortunately the companies that are bidding are companies we've had good experience with.
They're all relatively close.
Any other discussion? All right, so since this is an expenditure of funds, we'll need a roll call vote.
Mr. Graham, Mr. LaFever, Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. Pearson,
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman.
Yes.
All right, that's approved unanimously.
And that is it from Public Works for this evening.
All right, thank you.
Pretty quick.
Yeah, it averages out at other times.
I said tonight.
We will move on to Community Development Committee. And the three items that are listed there are coming directly from the zoning board. So I'll go ahead and take each one of those up. The first item that we have is the zoning text map amendment for XXX Cash Drive from General Industrial District to General Business District. This is an item that at zoning, we had a public hearing, and then we had the meeting after the public hearing regarding this. We have Ryan Winter and Joe Cap, who are the two individuals that are purchasing this property from the Village of Winnebago. The Village of Winnebago still owns this property, and it was recommended at zoning to have this change from General Industrial District to General Business District, which fits the area and also would fit the next property that they own right next to it. It would have the same then zoning category. So we would need a motion. Do we have a resolution?
I
Yes.
have an ordinance,
Ordinance?
It's an ordinance.
but it is conditioned on the waivers from the property owners.
So we have, I guess, a motion to adopt an ordinance subject to the waivers from the neighboring neighbors.
And then provide a special use permit, but either getting waivers or having an additional public hearing. That's part of the packet. Sure, an XXX, right?
Right, we're just doing the zoning right now, and then the next item will be the special permitted use. So is this
That's
just
the,
both?
yeah, this is the XXX Cash Drive, the zoning with the special permitted use for that one. And then 105 just had a special permitted use.
So we actually are taking up items 1 and part of number 2. And so we would want an ordinance under 1 and part of 2 to allow for the change in zoning for the property known as XXX Cash Drive, which I believe is lot 2 in the plat. And also for a special permitted use for that same property at XXX Cash Drive to operate as a self-storage facility.
Yeah, but that's a separate ordinance.
No?
They're they're by property.
Right, so the property is gonna have, the ordinance is gonna say that the ordinance is going, if approved, change the zoning and allow a special permitted use for the property at XXX Cash Drive.
Okay,
So there's gonna be one ordinance that will address those two. We just have it set out here a little differently in the agenda,
alright,
but we do have it set out. So we are allowed to vote on it tonight.
And it has listed the special permitted use restrictions that zoning had come up with.
So I think Bill Emmert had put together information that was part of your packet, and it would have been in there, but the restrictions are that all outside lighting fixtures located on the subject property shall be affixed to structures on the property and located at a height of no higher than 8 feet 4 inches. And then the fixture shall point generally downward towards the ground and have a hood affixed thereon, which will direct the light downward to minimize light from emitting to the side. And the light emitting from each fixture shall not exceed 3,000 lumens. And again, zoning also recommended these conditions, and if these conditions are part of that, then they have recommended that there be a special use permit for the self-storage facility on that location. So again, we need an ordinance to change the zoning and to allow that special permitted use.
2023-04.
Thank you.
But you had indicated at this particular point that approval would be pending some sign-offs by neighboring properties.
Consent and
Correct.
waiver forms, that's correct, from the neighboring landowners within 250 feet. And letters were sent to each of them. I don't have them all back yet, but they're coming in every day.
I can tell you the village did sign off on their letter.
I will make the motion that we approve that ordinance, pending confirmation of those waivers.
And I indicate in there, just so you know, that it would not, I always record those, but it would not be recorded until all those waivers were.
Perfect. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any additional
This is
discussion?
Mr. Pearson.
Correct.
How bright is 3,000 lumens? I mean, is that,
The typical house light bulb, probably at most 4,000 lumens. Just to kind of give you an idea, because I just changed a bulb in my house, and you can get a 3,000 or 4,000, so it's not overly bright.
bright enough to walk around, but maybe see a combination lock or something?
And the idea is that it'll have a hood, so it will not emit light up into the air, and hopefully it'll just direct it down towards the ground.
Are the waivers something we offer, we'll be able to offer all businesses then?
No,
Something like that?
see what the waiver she's talking about is, you're supposed to, when you have a public hearing, notify all property owners within 250 feet of that, and that was not done. So when we had our public hearing, we had the publication, so
Oh,
everybody.
it was in the newspaper?
It was in the newspaper, but you
Oh,
also have to
okay.
give specific notice to those businesses or those property owners, which hadn't been done. So we're following back up and just getting waivers from all of those property owners saying that they would waive any issue with having conducted the public hearing without them receiving.
As if they hadn't showed up and had it.
Right, but
As if they
received.
received, yes.
So if they received it, then it's their choice to show up. If they don't show up and
Right.
express an issue with it, it's kind of an over, this way here, I guess at least you're even getting better because you've got confirmation from everybody that they're acceptable to it.
And I can tell you that I've had some follow-up questions, and really the only thing is, this doesn't affect me, does it?
Right.
That's all they care about, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's all businesses.
Right, yes. Any other discussion? Hearing none, let's have a roll call vote, please.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. Zorro,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson,
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. LaFever.
That's approved unanimously. And I will go ahead and sign that. So you have this underneath it.
This is just a copy.
No problem. All right.
Just make me copies.
All right, now,
That's the next one, yeah. Without the copy.
okay, so the next item is the second part of item 2, and this is for a special permitted use for the property located at 105 Cash Drive to operate a self-storage facility. Again, the two individuals up here that are purchasing XXX Cash Drive from the village are already own the property due west of that at 105 Cash Drive, which is directly east of the Dollar General store. And so their desire is to be able to have the self-storage units on both parcels. And again, it came from zoning with a recommendation to allow that special permitted use so long as we have those same conditions. And so this is going to be ordinance number
2023-05.
Thank you. And so I would need a motion to adopt ordinance number 2023-05.
I will make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion regarding this motion?
As best I can recall, those are basically parallel, right? All the criteria is parallel right down the line.
Exactly the same.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, we could get a roll call, please.
Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson,
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. LaFever.
All right, that's also approved unanimously. I'll sign that. All right. And gentlemen, thank you for coming, and you're welcome to leave whenever you want. You can stay for the meeting or leave whenever you want.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
You too. The last item we have is the zoning text/map amendment for the property located at 7219 Cunningham Road in Rockford, also known as Meridian Nursery. And we have here change from Winnebago County Heavy Industrial Zoning District to Village Winnebago General Industrial District. But that was a recommendation from zoning. We had a public hearing and that was the result. But because there's a pre-annexation agreement and there's a zoning change involved, the zoning has to be addressed first. And then the recommendation from zoning comes back to this board. And then this board then has to address the pre-annexation agreement with that zoning recommendation. So the next step for this one is we need to schedule a public hearing. And my recommendation is that we have the public hearing scheduled for about 5:55 p.m. Is it May 10th is our next board meeting? Whatever that second, or May 8th, I think it's May 8th.
May.
Okay, so I would suggest that we schedule a public hearing for Monday, May 8th at 5:55 p.m. And I would also ask that, and I'll ask that we have we need a motion, I guess, to approve that, to set that.
You can, I mean, we sometimes do, sometimes don't, honestly. I just am looking because I know it's an early meeting. I just want to make sure for the publication, because it's not less than 15, no more than 30. So if I get that in on like Friday.
And then.
Yeah.
So I would ask that we have a motion to schedule this for a public hearing. Yes. And that we authorize our village attorney to have published in the newspaper the notice, and that our attorney also be authorized to send out notice to all neighbors, property owners within 250 feet of this property.
The other thing too is, and I'll take care of that, but just so you know that this has to go to the library district,
Yeah.
the fire protection district, all of these other people get notice. And when you see, and I always tell them too, they're sent, for those individuals, they have to be sent by statute, by certified mail. Because sometimes they will call me and say, you didn't have to do that, you didn't have to spend the money kind of thing, but statutory.
By statute, we have to, so if anyone calls you and says, why is the village wasting your money? Well, it's our state legislators that require that. So I guess if I could have a motion.
I'll make that motion for whatever he just said.
Thank you.
And I know what you said, I just, as far as rephrasing it.
I'll second.
Very good, close enough. Yes, go
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, it's been a while since I've been able to do it that way. All right, so that's been scheduled, so we'll take that back up then at the next board meeting.
You had sent an email, you wanted the community development to address that.
Right, so if community
Is
development,
that before that, I think you mean?
if you want to put it on there, then I can possibly attend, but yeah, you would just, at this point, address the pre-annexation agreement and the zoning recommendation. Take a look at it, see if it's something that you feel as a committee is something that the board should act on, subject to any information that's gleaned from the public hearing. Presuming you have people that come to the public hearing that may provide information that, you know, we don't otherwise have, and that may sway trustees to vote a particular way. So we always have to wait for the public hearing, and then we have our meeting after the public hearing so we can discuss what was done at the public hearing.
And then when it gets published in the newspaper, which again, have to get it there by this Friday to be published by the 20th, then that pre-annexation agreement has to be on file in the village office, but it will say so people can look at it, but it will say in the public hearing notice that documents on file in the village office and may be changed in whole or in part, because that's the whole idea of the public hearing, as you mentioned. People have commentary that would sway how you want to word things, then you can change it accordingly.
Because of the timing on that, Jason, I mean, obviously.
Wait till the May meeting?
Well, no, we can probably still have the discussion, because if nothing gets surfaced at the public hearing, you can have an opinion or a recommendation based on what you know at that time. Obviously, if new information becomes available, you might have to reconsider it, but if there's nothing new that surfaces, then you've kind of made a decision based on your best known information at that time.
Sure.
It just helps be able to move it along or whatever.
Right, rather than wait another month.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else under community development? That's about it. Okay, we'll move on to police committee.
All right, first item there, this is coming from committee to approve a resolution, if I can have a number, Sally.
I made a note. 13R.
13R, 2023 13R.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Nope, got it. To authorize the village president to sign the memorandum of understanding with the Winnebago School District in regards to the SRO. You do have the executive, or I don't have an executive summary, but you do have the, okay, so you have got the MOU in the packet. And we have talked about it in committee and are ready to move forward with this signature. So we're asking for approval of the resolution to sign.
Since it came from committee, we do not need a second, so we need discussion regarding the pending motion.
Long time in coming.
Yeah, and I will make a comment. You'll see that resolution is dated to 2/13/2023, which is a little odd the way it came together. We did a lot of work with the school district. The school district's attorney did their work on it, made some changes, approved it in their board meeting and sent it back to us. And then we had some issues that we wanted to get Mary's opinion on, which we did in the police committee. And at the end of all of that discussion, really had no major issues. We did decide though that we do have to have an SRO substitute or backup that we're gonna basically have here in the village, just in case it doesn't work out. That was some of the language in the MOU that we weren't 100% comfortable, because we don't have two SROs ready to go, but it does make sense if something happened to the one, you'd have another one anyway. So it all worked out, so we're comfortable moving forward.
Any other discussion? There's no discussion. Yeah, let's do a roll call.
Yeah. Mrs. Zor,
Yes.
Mr. Pearson,
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. LaFever, Mr. McKinnon.
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
All right, also coming from recommendations from committee, need another resolution number. 14R? I'm getting good at this, aren't I?
Yeah.
And this is to authorize the purchase of a 2023 Ford Interceptor utility vehicle for that school resource officer. You have the executive summary and the resolution in the packet.
This came from committee,
It's
correct?
from committee, so we do not need a second, so any discussion on this motion?
The only comment I wanted to make here once I get to it,
This is just for the purchase of the vehicle, everybody's aware, right?
yeah, this one is just for the purchase of the vehicle. Sorry, I don't have my hyperlinks in this, so it takes me a minute to get there. In the executive summary portion only, when it talks about budget impact, that's true, not to exceed 41,000. Remember, we had 75,000 budgeted in total for this and for it to be equipped. So again, that one's actually more accurate, so that's fine. Sorry, it's just taking me a long time to get to the page. Okay, all good.
Okay. Any additional discussion? All right, if there's no discussion, roll call please.
Mr. Pearson,
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. LaFever, Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes.
All right, that's approved.
Okay, the last resolution that we have included in the packet, which I'm going to say is 2023-15R. We did not have the numbers yet in committee, they have come subsequent, and so we were able to get a resolution in here, and this is basically to purchase the equipment for that vehicle. I'll get to that one.
Is this from committee?
This is not from committee, so this is because we didn't have the number, so I guess this is this is a motion.
Okay.
So in here, to not to exceed 27,708.63, which is the price in the executive summary. So I'll make a motion.
I will second.
All right, any discussion on this motion?
Is that supplemental equipment gone up dramatically, or are we just used to seeing you swapping it from one car to another?
This is an extra car.
Yeah, I understand that, but that's why I say the number just looks so much bigger, because there's no swapping of equipment
Yeah,
at all.
because you got some big ticket items as far as the computer, camera, system, the radios.
Well, I guess that's the other thing too, you got more stuff that you didn't used to have on it with that stuff too.
The transfer of equipment really saved us a lot of money in the past. Like I said, those are big ticket items. You're talking 10,000 for probably just the camera and the computer system that goes in there.
And I got executive summary, this is what I meant to say when I blew up the last one. So there's a budget impact on the executive summary, I just want to clarify that. It has the 27,708.63, and it states to be reimbursed via contract with the school district. Just to remind you, there's a kind of an inconsistency the way we have these. This is only going to be reimbursed if we have a 3-year deal that goes through, because we basically took the car price, the equipment price divided by 3 as part of the SRO cost. So obviously we have to pay for this all this year, so the budget impact for this year is going to be the full amount, but we're only going to get a third of the combined of these two prices, the vehicle and the equipment, over the next 3 years. If the school for some reason backs out before we even start, which they can do, we will absorb this cost in the budget. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, roll call please.
Mr. Ackerman,
Yes.
Mr. Graham, Mr. LaFever, Mr. McKinnon,
Yes.
Mrs. O'Rourke.
Yes.
Mr. Pearson.
Yes.
All right, that's approved. Anything else from police?
No.
All right, thank you, Julie. We don't have anything from finance tonight. And just a reminder from admin team and the clerk to return your statement of economic interest no later than May 1st, 2023. Whether you're continuing on or going off or somewhere in between. Anyone that's been appointed to a position, and this includes you, Mr. Emmert, anyone on liquor commission, zoning board, or this board, you will need to make sure that you have yours filed by that date.
Or there is a fine.
There is a fine, and
Sorry, I don't remember how much.
I think it's 15, yeah, it was 15.
15, then
Unless
after a
they
certain
raise it.
time, it goes a high amount per day.
Yeah.
I think they give it to 15 or
So,
something.
so if anyone's having difficulty or whatever, let Kelly know. And
Do you keep a copy of the last one we did
They're on the system if you need them.
on the what system?
If you go in into if you got an ID to get onto that, they're stored on.
It says it, but when you click the link to open it, it doesn't open.
You know what, one was missing. I think the 20, because you're always doing them after the fact, so I think the 21 was missing.
so that would have been the
I just-
last one, because we're doing the 22 right now.
Yeah, I mean,
You didn't keep
I
a
just
copy?
did one though
Yeah.
for
And
2022.
you didn't keep a copy?
No, why would I?
But in answer to your question, I believe Kelly keeps. it.
Okay, I'll get a copy from Kelly, 'cause mine's just gonna be a repeat.
yeah, but for whatever reason, the 21 is not out there. I mean, 2012 to 22, I mean, but for some reason, the one that you would have filled out last year for the 2021 year is not.
That was the year of the conversion, right? Of the
Yeah.
weird ugly form that we don't
Yes.
like.
It was.
Okay.
All right. We can go on to president items. We just have our standard meeting dates. Any update on those, or?
Didn't we have did we have a conflict on there?
There was, we had
Oh, yeah, community development and police are the exact same time and date, and location.
Well, that works.
So you need a split
That works-
personality for that
that
meeting,
works for one
JC.
person.
Moving it. I'm open.
So, I don't, do you wanna move, do you guys want, we can move police, I'll have to talk with Adam, Adam's schedule's always up in the
I
air.
thought we had.
Mine is a standing meeting though, guys, it's the last Wednesday of every month.
And if we can get to that way
Yeah,
where the committees
I
are
didn't have
typically
that.
standing, that would be so much better.
Cause then you know where they'll never overlap.
Right.
Well, so you got yours on Wednesday, Public Works is on Thursday, so that's
Tuesday.
Tuesday week.
Right in a row.
Why not?
You only gotta go to 2 out of
We
3.
don't have to go, yeah.
So one of them is gonna have to change.
So who's gonna be on Tuesday? Community development?
Yes.
You're gonna move you're gonna move that one?
And what,
Yes. Leave yours
what time?
5:30.
And what is that date?
25th.
I'm still working on that. Tuesday the
April 25th.
25th.
I may have to touch base with you on moving that back a little bit, but leave it where it's at for right now.
Right. That's why I can't put, see, on a schedule set date.
Well, we were what's set once upon a time, we'll get back.
So police is this one.
All right, any other conflicts or changes we need to make? Okay, we can move on to new business. Any new business?
I do. The last page in your packet is a kind of a spreadsheet of items that we put together in police committee. As you know, we've been looking at the UTV ordinance issue. And I wanted to get a little structure around all the things we think as a committee we need to look at before we can say we're good to go. So I hope you get a chance to look at it. All I'm asking is for trustees to look that list over. I'm trying to keep notes on it as we move along through the process, but if there's any big item where you say, well, what about this, what about that, please forward those items to me so that I can bring them to police committee and so we can keep this kind of moving along. I think we have a pretty complete list there, but I'm sure there's something that we just are not thinking of.
And then just out loud, I just happened to think of this. Because Cunningham is a county road, and if we do decide to allow side-by-sides in the village, we would want to wait to implement our ordinance until we can get something from the county saying that they will allow.
Well, I just tried that. And, Aaron, they are the other way around. The precedent was set in Durand, which, for what that's worth, but that's what he was gonna use. They did it after they passed the ordinance in the village.
Right, so, I mean, we could pass an ordinance, but we could say that it takes effect 90 days from the date of passage or upon the county approving, whichever occurs first.
Okay, because
That, they need an ordinance in place for the county to consider it, but I don't want people to think that the day that we pass it and allow it, they can drive down Cunningham.
well, it's gonna be easier because Julie had asked me to work with a map.
Right.
Of where you can ride. By the way, I think it might be easier to put where we can't ride, but we can
Yeah.
hash that out.
But anyway, I just
But
wanted,
Cunningham then would be,
You can only cross
you'd have to do
that.
this twice.
so anyway, I just want to throw it out there that if we're looking for the county to address it, that we would want to have a delay in the implementation. We want to pass it, but delay the implementation for a period of time to allow the county to act on it. And I figure 90 days or 120 days would be sufficient that the county could act within that time, and then ours would just automatically take effect and go into effect once the county approves that change. Okay? Because otherwise, if we say right away that we can do it, then they're gonna be writing up and down.
All he could give me was verbal from the county highway, the head of the highway department, so.
But even if they, just hypothetically, even if the county didn't pass it, although you can't drive on their roads, can you cross their roads?
You can cross
90
perpendicular,
degrees.
but you can't. So I just don't want our police officers
No,
to
I
have that issue.
understand it, but I'm just trying to make sure that we're understanding.
Julie and I know I hold the police committee information.
Yeah.
It's on my list.
Anything else, Julie?
No, but again, if you see anything or looking at our notes on what we talked about, and you just think we're crazy because we're going that direction, the sooner you can flag that to me, the better, please.
All right. I do have a couple of items.
I've got one too, also,
Okay.
just to restate the request that in the not too distant future, we put together a COW meeting for 3 or 4 global items, as far as infrastructure, buildings, probably the park, and a few other things that we talked about that.
Absolutely.
That was item number one that I had down, was looking to schedule a COW meeting. And I guess what I would want to do is wait till we have a May board meeting to see who is going to be on the board going forward, so that if we have appointments to make, and if we can make them at the May meeting, then the newly appointed people would also, or person would be involved in scheduling that. So yeah, we'll have that on the agenda item or new business to set a COW meeting after that. Next item I have is, we have the terms ending at the May board meeting. So everyone here will need to come back to the May board meeting, and then generally it's towards the end of the board meeting, after we've done all of the regular business, when we get to new businesses, when we normally swear in those that have been elected and certified that they have won their races. Drew, I understand, you didn't run and your term will be up, so that'll be your last meeting. And so we will need to appoint somebody for that vacant position, because you are in a 4-year position. And then Jason, you also, and then we had Adam. So since we only had 3 run and we had 5 open positions, then we have 3 of those filled for 4 years, and we would then appoint 2 for up to a 2-year position to be at the next election. And then Mike, I don't know if you want to say right now or not, but if you wanted to be appointed for a short term, for up to a 2-year term, or for a term until we can find somebody, that's your prerogative.
Well, I figured I was going to sit down and have a conversation. We had a couple things, but my intent would be is I'll give you a rolling 90-day notice.
Mhm.
So I won't drop the bomb on you, but, basically, so every day I don't say anything, you got 90 days. So I would, to look, but I, knowing that you're shorthanded, I'm not going to leave you high and dry.
I do have somebody in mind that might be able to do it September or October. And so I thought that might work, within your time frame.
But yeah, as long as, you're able to reappoint me to continue on, I think, like you said, we'll take it, 90 days continuous or whatever, and see how that flows and see how it flows with other decisions I make in my life, so.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Do you have any prospects for Adams, or for,
For Drew, I have one person.
We got you already, Drew.
I have one, So I have one person that I will contact to see if he's interested. But if anybody here has any idea of a person that may be interested in serving, let me know, because then I can also contact that person. It would be nice if we could have somebody available and ready to go at the May board meeting, so we can appoint that person at the May board meeting. And that way we can start the May board meeting with everybody in place, and then when we schedule our meetings and things, and also the appointments to the committees, we will have those people there.
Do people know there's a vacancy? I mean, is that on our
We
website
do
or
need to,
anything?
we do need to post it once, because I typically have 60 days to appoint somebody. And I've done some reading, and I believe we are supposed to post it or take some action so that the public knows. But if we don't, we're not required to post it.
I mean, that'd be a good thing to do personally.
We could. So
Need people?
need
help?
need volunteers.
Well, I mean, we got people that speak up on social media that don't spend 1 minute in this room. Let them come on the board and say their piece.
And my concern is I would not want someone that does that on Facebook.
No,
or anyplace else.
I agree, but all I'm saying is I just think we could have a broader representation,
True.
you know?
Well, I mean, again, if anybody knows of someone that's interested in serving, let me know, and I'll interview them and then make a recommendation to the board.
Maybe if they actually had to deal with people face to face rather than behind a computer, maybe that'd be more civil.
In some ways, I agree.
But frankly, it's a very good point that you don't want somebody with an agenda, because we've had that over the years, and they don't last very long, because when they realize what you're dealing with, you can't just be a dictator. Then they're gone.
And a posting doesn't mean they are on the board either. It's a conversation of somebody you might not even know very well or been thinking of that could be a benefit to the group. So that's really where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, makes sense. All right. And the last time I have is just the appointment of trustees to committees and appointing the chair people of each committee. So if you are happy with the committees you're on and with the positions you hold, again, as Jason mentioned, I would likely appoint him to be the chairperson of the Community Development Committee. But if you're comfortable where you're at, fine. If not, let me know ahead of time, so then I can talk to you and then also then talk to other trustees and see if we can make some moves. But from my perspective, I think you're all doing a great job of what you do. A lot of you have history and knowledge, but if you want to change, let me know. All right, and that's all I have for new business.
I have one thing, a quick thing, only because, so in community development, I didn't get it on the agenda, it's probably my fault, but I thought it was supposed to come to the board, but it's not a hurry. I think it's June, we do the medication drop-off we had talked about in there. And you'll see, if you saw the minutes on that, maybe we can discuss this right now, of whether we even need it. Mike had pointed out that we could get some metrics on it and see, but I had noticed and found on the federal website, I believe it is, that there are 17 drop-off locations, 15 I thought, but I counted 17 today. And so is it something I mean, it's not a lot of money. Like Mike pointed out, it's a donation, so that's great. But I thought I'd bring it up. There's more of that than there was maybe as we discussed when it started.
Yeah.
Since I didn't get it put on here as a vote, I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, I think in the very beginning, basically, we were a location, and then they figured, okay, well, we're doing something for the community, then they requested, a donation. They kind of say it's to cover the medication drive, but I think it's an overall donation or whatever. And, as Jason's alluded to, when we first started that, there wasn't a lot of places to get rid of that medication, and that's why we had such a banner first couple of years, because this stuff was stockpiled. Now there's more prevalent, but it's a comment that I made in the community development meeting. At least I think the organization does a good job in many different places. So, even without the medication drive, I think it's probably a worthy cause.
And again, I reached out to them after that meeting, and they are willing to give us, they're absolutely willing to give us how many people did drop off.
Okay.
And
I said,
possibly from where.
Yeah, at least it would be good to know that, at least, again, for transparency to the community, it's, you know, it's a worthwhile effort but,
And again, as Mike pointed out, it is a service that they provide to the whole county. And so our residents benefit from Keep Northern Illinois Beautiful. And so by our donation, we are helping that organization to continue to do things that really no other entity can do in our area. And
I think they're, I don't know, is it next Saturday or whatever, but even through the Historical Society, they did it last year, they do it this year, as far as a community cleanup. And they kind of do that somewhat in partnership with Keep Northern Illinois Beautiful, as far as, you know, providing some of the support and stuff like that or whatever. So there's
Other things they do, right? I was reading on their site.
Yeah, and again, if you're not aware of it, for personally on Saturday mornings or Tuesday afternoons or whatever, they've got, you know, the closest drop-off site to here is you know, hydraulic road or whatever. So if you needed to get rid of, you know, some textiles or some computer electronics, and I mean, they're.
Where?
But they
Yeah,
charge
the
you for
2
that.
days.
electronic stuff.
No, they only charge you for monitors.
televisions, monitors,
Yeah, if you
air
had an old,
conditioners,
if you had an old computer or
Do
hard
you have to have
drive.
an appointment?
Nope,
you just drive through.
every Tuesday afternoon, every Saturday morning.
Yeah,
I can
unless,
get you the information.
unless it's
I
too
would
hot or too
appreciate
cold.
it. Yes, please.
Where is it at?
Off of Alpine, hydraulic.
Hydraulic.
drive.
It used to be an old auto shop, it used to be, oh God, George was the guy's name, an old German guy, it used to be, Continental Body Shop is where they've taken over that facility. And so, yes, you just drive around the building and, you know, again, they'll, on a weekly basis, they'll take your electronics. If you got clothing that's not suitable for donating for reuse for charity, they'll take that as textiles and then it gets ground up and used for, you know, blankets and this type of thing or whatever. You know, you get rid of some of your excess paper. I mean, we are fortunate enough in Winnebago that we have recycling here, but many parts of the area don't have it. So, you know, they do a lot of that recycling and stuff like that.
So just for your edification and for those that may be watching this later on, the easy way to get to it from Winnebago is going down 20 and then exiting the Alpine exit and heading north on Alpine. And as you pass Sandy Hollow, it's going to be on Hydraulic Road is on your right.
4665 Hydraulic Road.
Thank you, sir.
And if you happen to be somebody that travels into McChesney Park, they got another location up there.
Okay, thank you for that.
I got a TV I need to get rid of.
Yeah, TVs you will have to pay for, and if you have anything with refrigerant, like an old dehumidifier, you get to pay $15, $20.
Can't get rid of this stuff, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Take care conditions, that stuff, and they.
So I'll have that on.
As much as I support Keep Northern Beautiful, I'm not trying to boycott.
But they do take that stuff and get rid of the freon.
Okay, good, well, that's good to know.
Recycle.
And when is the next Scout Drive?
Yes. Do you know, have they talked about it? I think it's in the fall usually.
Yeah, I do collect the stuff in the corner of my garage until I keep tripping over it, and then it's.
That'll be on the next board meeting.
Okay. Yeah.
I just thought I'd bring it up, glad I did.
Okay. All right, any other new business? Right. Not, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second.
All right, go ahead.
Go ahead, Drew, no.
No, Drew?
I
Drew
defer
was-
to you, Drew.
Yeah.
And there's a motion of Pearson's.
We'll have roll call, please. Actually, we can do it all.
No.
Yeah. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Not used to that. No opposed. All right, meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
6:58, Sally.
Wow.